Did you know that Rome wasn't actually built in a day? Well, there are more things that you probably didn't know. Here are 10 mind-blowing facts about Rome. Number 10. A day in Rome is actually longer than in other parts of Italy. Rome is one of only 4 Italian cities where the clock runs faster. It's what? You can be 2 minutes ahead of the rest of the country by simply crossing the city limits into Rome. It's due to an old law passed in 1889 when Italy was unified. The government decided that since Rome was the capital, its clock would run 2 minutes ahead of the other regions to make sure that everyone was on the same time. This makes for some very strange situations, like being able to have lunch before your friends back home. But it also means that you will need to hurry up if you don't want to be late for dinner. The other 3 Italian cities where the clocks run faster are Milan, Naples, and Turin. Number 9. Vatican City is the world's smallest country. When people talk about the smallest countries in the world, they usually mean by population. However, Vatican City is the smallest country in the world by area. At just 110 acres, it's smaller than Central Park in New York or the White House lawn. It's home to about 1,000 people, all of whom are Roman Catholic clergy or Swiss Guards. The country was established in 1929 when Pope Pius II gave up the Papal States to Mussolini in exchange for the sovereignty of Vatican City. The deal included Lateran Treaty, which guaranteed the Pope's temporal power over the city and extraterritorial rights over all Catholics in Italy. Since then, Vatican City has become a tourist hotspot, with visitors coming from all over the world to see St. Peter's Square, Vatican museums, and Sistine Chapel. If you plan on visiting soon, though, you should hurry up because come 2025, Vatican City plans to close off many of its most popular attractions to tourists due to overcrowding. Number 8. Ancient Romans used urine for cleaning. Yep, you heard that right. They used urine instead of soap and water. In ancient Rome, urine was considered a cleaner than water, and it was commonly used for cleaning clothes and bodies. They would often mix it with ashes and scrape it onto their skin as a form of exfoliation. They even used it to clean their teeth and prevent bad breath. So if you think you have it rough today with all the fancy soaps and shampoos on the market, just be glad you weren't around during the days of ancient Rome. But how did they get their hands on so much urine? Well, it turns out that public bathrooms were equipped with special devices called urinaria, which were essentially little shops where prostitutes would go to relieve themselves. For a small fee, of course, these women would then collect the urine and deliver it to homes throughout the city. It was a win-win situation for both the prostitutes and the citizens. The prostitutes got paid, and the citizens got their hands on the latest cleaning solution. 7. Rome wasn't always the capital of Italy. When Rome was founded in 753 BC by Romulus, it became the capital of the Roman kingdom. But it wasn't always the capital of Italy. In fact, it wasn't even close. Rome was located in the central region of Latium, which was surrounded by other independent Italian states, such as Naples, Venice, and Genoa. It wasn't until 1861 that Rome was finally chosen to be the capital of a unified Italy. The process of unifying Italy and making Rome the capital was a long and complicated one that involved several wars, treaties, and diplomatic agreements. But eventually, on March 17, 1861, Victor Emmanuel II was proclaimed King of Italy with Rome as its capital. Number 6. There are more than 2,000 years old ruins under Rome. If you take a walk through downtown Rome, you're likely to stumble upon ruins from the Roman Empire. There are so many ruins scattered throughout the city that it's hard to keep track of them all. And because new ones are being discovered all the time, no one really knows how many there are. According to official estimates, there could be as many as 2,000 years old ruins underneath Rome. Most of these ruins are from the Roman Empire, which ruled over the city from 27 BC to 476 AD. During its peak, Rome was one of the largest and most densely populated cities in the world. As a result, there are a lot of remains from this period. Some of the most famous examples include the Colosseum, Pantheon, and Roman Forum. These places draw in millions of tourists each year who come to see what life was like in ancient Rome. But while these famous landmarks are amazing to behold, there are just as many hidden gems scattered throughout the city. If you know where to look, you can find ruins from the Roman Empire, literally anywhere in Rome. So next time you're in the city, keep your eyes peeled. You never know what you might find. Number 5. Rome had running water and public bathrooms before modern times. Yes, you heard that right. The Romans had running water and public bathrooms before modern times. In fact, their plumbing system was one of the most advanced in the ancient world. The aqueducts brought fresh water into the city, while the sewers carried away waste. This made Rome a very sanitary place to live, especially compared to other cities at the time. The public bathrooms were also incredibly advanced. They featured toilets with running water, as well as systems for heating and ventilation. This is pretty impressive considering that flush toilets were not invented until the 16th century. Of course, not everyone in Roman society had access to these luxuries. The wealthy citizens of Rome enjoyed the comforts of running water and public bathrooms. But the poor often had to use outdoor outhouses. Despite this, the plumbing and sanitation systems in Rome were still some of the best in the ancient world. Number 4. Ancient Rome was 8 times more densely populated than modern New York. In its heyday, ancient Rome was one of the most densely populated cities in the world. At its peak in the 2nd century AD, Rome was home to over 1 million people. To put this in perspective, modern New York is one of the most densely populated cities in the world, with just over 8 million people. This means that ancient Rome was 8 times more densely populated than modern New York. There are a few reasons for this. First, ancient Rome was a much larger city than modern New York. It encompassed a much wider area and had more land within its borders. Second, the Romans were more efficient with their use of space. They built their buildings close together and made use of every available nook and cranny. Finally, the Romans had a much higher birth rate than modern humans. This led to a rapid population growth within the city. All of these factors combined to make ancient Rome one of the most densely populated cities in history. Number 3. Rome was built on 7 hills. According to legend, Rome was founded in 753 BC by Romulus, who killed his twin brother Remus after the two of them had been raised by a she-wolf. The city was said to have been built on 7 hills, and each hill had its own distinct characteristics and functions. Palatine Hill was the center of Roman political power, while the Capitoline Hill housed the city's main temple. The Aventine Hill was known for its gardens and vineyards, while the Quirinal Hill was the most densely populated. The Viminal Hill was home to many of the city's prostitutes, while the Cillian Hill was known for its athletic facilities. Finally, the Esquiline Hill was the location of Rome's main aqueduct. These 7 hills gave the city its unique character and layout, and they continue to be a prominent feature of Rome today. 4 of the 7 hills are still visible within the city limits, while the other 3 have been leveled to make way for modern development. Number 2. Rome had its own version of Tinder. Yeah, you heard that right. The Romans had a version of Tinder long before it was cool. Back in the days of ancient Rome, finding a hookup was as easy as swiping right. Okay, maybe not that easy, but you get the point. The Romans had a pretty casual approach to dating and relationships, and they had their own version of Tinder called Cupid's Shuffle. It worked like this. Two people who were interested in each other would meet up at a public bathhouse or a brothel and then sneak out together. If they were caught, they would be fined. But it was worth the risk, because if they were not caught, they could then consummate their relationship in private. Pretty scandalous, right? Well, it was definitely scandalous by Roman standards, but by today's standards, it's pretty tame. Still, it's interesting to see how the Romans had their own version of Tinder long before it was popularized in the modern day. Maybe they were onto something. Number 1. The Leaning Tower of Pisa is actually straighter than the Leaning Tower of Rome. Yep, you heard that right. The Leaning Tower of Pisa is actually straighter than the Leaning Tower of Rome. The Leaning Tower of Pisa is a famous landmark in Italy that attracts tourists from all over the world. But did you know that it's actually not the only leaning tower in the country? In fact, there's another leaning tower in Rome that's even more tilted. The Torre di San Giovanni in Rome is a medieval tower that leans at a staggering 5 degrees. This is almost twice the tilt of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. So why doesn't anyone talk about the Torre di San Giovanni? Well, it's S because the tower is located in a dangerous part of town and it's not open to the public. Still, it's an interesting testament to the engineering skills of the medieval builders who constructed it. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.